It's Monday, May 2nd, 2022. For the first time ever, my son's school is closed. It's something to do with Eid. I couldn't even really read it because the letters are not English. I mean, like, they're characteristically alphabet in English in pattern, or by singularity, but by pattern, they don't make sounds or construct that's been taught in the northeast of New England or of within the Americas or the America. With this us looming that never came to fruition because I still don't have a over 6 foot to look up to. So I don't really see it getting off the ground very well as far as failure to launch. So anyway, I'm watching See the BS this morning. They have, in their order, they put the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I've never even heard of this thing. Apparently it's like the cool kids that went to college and had some pathway to success I never got to. It's their level of gathering, and the president actually showed up, so it's somewhat important. And then it goes to Capitol Riot revelations. Then they go into our digital future with something called Snap CEO, but it used to be called Snapchat. Now it's just called Snap. Don't know what that's about. He defines the difference between augmented and virtual reality, which I rather appreciate the definition. What is it?
Did you give him breakfast?
Yes. Then there's this, afterwards, this thing that I absolutely hate that the humans do. But, of course, they are the Child's Mind Institute, being that even though they're adults, they, act like children. On kids and mental health. I mean, the way that they set the campaign, and it even says campaign on the digital thing. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting how small-minded they really are and what they do with these campaigns. Which really pisses me off because this goes back to something in 2015 where I could have been rescued and saved. They could have avoided completely the Tia wedding, the 2015 one, to the guy who was born in 1975. Could have avoided a whole lot of problems in a collapsing star system. But instead, they put time back into rotation to do whatever it is that the filthy, disgusting assholes that populate some area do. And they forced me into World of Hurt. By design. So, they wanted me to go for something called a psychological evaluation. Here's the thing, small-minded shitbags. This word, augmented, the digital CEO makes it really clear. There's some kind of, we're at the bar and bench, even though I don't use it, we're at the bench and bar where other humans and aliens know this word augmented is a filter laid over the virtual. Virtual being there's the visual spectrum where I can see things, and then there's the augmented laid over it. Augmented may not be picked up by the person inside of realm activity, but somewhere else in the world where advanced technology also exists, they may be augmenting features over to the unsuspecting human in their point of view realm, just going about their daily effects. And it's a really high security breach when someone else somewhere is augmenting without permission and without the knowledge of the person in the POV, who can't see it, doesn't know who they are, hasn't been asked. In fact, if they had asked, would have said no, did not want to get involved, but they did it anyway. So this is a problem. But when you try to explain to some shitbag fucking psychologist in this dumb fucking useless medical program that the humans have put together in New York, you know, without Empire help, being Empire State help, because like they may be the smarter ones, but they're the ones that have the augmented technology and are the real fucking problem on a whole nother level. So then you go to speak to somebody at your level in New York as a New Yorker, and they're like, oh, are you seeing things? No, shitbag, I'm not seeing things. You're just not smart enough to know what the Empire is up to and their vocabulary and vernacular of shit that they keep getting away with that are hurting the public. I happen to have a few inside information to try to prevent myself from being harmed, and I'm trying to find some level of human that's intelligent enough to work with me, but that's failed at every day I've woken up since I arrived in 1978. So augmented is something that is placed over a already virtual realm in some like add-on feature. It doesn't necessarily mean that the human can see it, but they may know that it's there. So now, what level psychology is that? Because I really don't think that ordering a psychological evaluation, your humans are not intelligent enough to ever analyze in this realm. They're just not. So, psychological evaluation, just not doing it. I am not taking part in your human experiment, in your socialized failure. But here we are, and everybody wants to know if America's okay. At least I'm not the only one, because when I asked that question, I'm pretty sure someone in the US and someone in the UK and someone between the GB at the Great Beyond, they all got confused, and then all of a sudden I got fucking shit on again.
Poke fun at his political opponents, including House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
How real did you want me to make this? I'm just curious. In real things that happen?
Who was recorded saying things he had denied that he ever said. McCarthy told other GOP members of Congress after the January 6th riot that he was thinking of telling President Trump he should resign. McCarthy never got around to doing that. The audio of that conversation was obtained by Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns of the New York Times, authors of the new book, They Shall Not Pass, Trump, Biden, and the Battle for America's Future. It is published by Simon & Schuster, which, like CBS, is the division of Paramount Global. Now, the book covers the 2020 election, the assault on...
Because the last time I checked, the UK and the US are experiencing the exact same problem with this civic uprising, teaching the family secrets to the not us, and growing more and more indignant in their efforts, capitalizing on things and then making all sorts of excuses for themselves in not actually fixing a fucking thing. There's a GB somewhere in Great Beyond. I'm not even calling it Britain at this point. It's just the Great Beyond, because it's beyond my comprehension how none of this got fixed properly yet again. And then there's the America, the one, North America. And there's some interaction because we're supposed to be propping up America as an anchor because they kind of need it at the great beyond to do whatever it is that they do over there. You got that. So why is the us and the UK such a problem?
On the Capitol and President Biden's first year in office, and it is deeply reported based on hundreds of interviews, documents, and, yes, recordings. And the authors are with us now. Jonathan, Alex, thank you very much for being here. Congratulations on the book. I would like to say congratulations to our country, but I can't because the book paints a very disturbing picture of where we are. And the recordings are part of that story. So, Jonathan, what was it like?
Yeah, it was always a good question that nobody ever asks. So, in corporations, they have this thing like these quarterly reviews, and the bosses pull in. I mean, like I had one with I'm not Boy George. With Ray George once in Merrill Lynch. It was like really, really like I was all of like I don't know 19 or 20, and he pulls me to the office and just wanted your customer service ratings. Blah 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 blah. Great. Check off his list apparently. So that happens in corporate world, but like when you're building a nation and you're building a country and you got states that have to be built and report properly, where is that? Where's that process? When do they get their ratings? And who's rating them exactly? Is it like a customer service satisfaction survey we fill out? I mean, because it never made it to my mailbox. I'm just saying.
Like listening to not just that snippet that's been played a million times, but hours and hours of Republican leaders talking very candidly.
You know, for 5 years in Washington, there's been this conversation to the effect of, you know, in private, the Republicans really can't stand Donald Trump, and you ought to hear what they say behind closed doors. What we do in this book is pull back the curtain. We tell readers, we tell anybody who buys the book, this is what they actually think about Donald Trump. Here is that private conversation that you've heard about, and here it is in black and white. And here it is on tape. And it reflects the gulf, the vast gulf between the actual views of the GOP leaders about Trump and the views among voters toward him.
Now, this GOP, where does this exist? Because when I was reviewing the unrest in the American colonies, it does not mention, even though it has an international license, does not mention this GOP. So it also does not mention the U.S. as the us. So with those characteristics being barred from topic and conversation for this one purpose, I don't know who's teaching GOP linguistics, what area of operation they're being installed in, whose kids actually get to be in the know of like that secret little operation GOP, because the rest of the world has never heard of it. Like my world has never heard of it.
They're two very different things. Party leaders, the old guard, they can't stand Donald Trump. They want him to move off the stage. They want to nominate somebody else in 24. They believe he's one of the only things that's undermining their chances politically. And as you guys know, most of the voters...
Now, is that, because he just said the old bard, so is that part of the collapsing military? Like the old stuff we used to have, still think we have, and like still want as the backbone of our everything and protection, like one dad that just knows it all and it's gonna like just go, you know what, kid, I know you're having a really bad life frame. Let me clear my schedule and let me sit down for 5 minutes and like fix stuff. Let's do this together. That would be really wonderful, except that's not how it works, because there's something majorly wrong in places that people don't talk about.
Voters in the GOP are just fine with Donald Trump. They still retain a lot of affection for him. That gulf is unsustainable.
I missed the part though, Alex, where you got the recordings from.
Well, we're
I missed that part.
I want to know, are there more recordings coming?
Yes, I do too.
Look, we have an enormous amount.
I don't understand why they get to ask questions like that.
of primary source material in this book. And one of the challenges in telling a story as big as the one that we tell in the book is trying to unpack all of that with, frankly, a limited amount of space. And when you're teasing the publication of a book, when you're trying to share your material, even in a pretty long excerpt in the New York Times, you can only share so much of it. So we're still trying to figure out what to do with that huge trove of material, which, by the way, is not just about Republicans. People are loving the Kevin McCarthy material if they don't like Kevin McCarthy. But, this is not a book that goes easy on Joe Biden and his party either.
No, that's what I think is the beauty of the book, guys, is that you do a deep dive on both parties. You reveal that both parties have issues.
Right.
I mean, it seems very, very fact-based, but neither party seems to acknowledge, you know what, we got problems in River City here. They're so busy blaming the other as opposed.
What's River City? I didn't get that memo.
Opposed to looking inward.
It's something that Jonathan and I talk about almost every day, is that these two parties, and I think the book shows this really vividly, these two parties are almost in a competition to see who can do a better job of keeping the other one in business, right? That when the leaders of both parties are behind closed doors, they will acknowledge, as you hear with Kevin McCarthy, but other folks, including on the Democratic side, like, we have got some real big problems here, and we have some extreme forces in our party. We've got to do something about it. The two parties aren't identical. But they've got some big problems.
I do want to stick with Kevin McCarthy for just a second, because I think for the average person reading this book, it shows them something about politics that they may not understand, that I don't understand. So you've got McCarthy in that private recording saying, I've had it with this guy, referring to President Trump. And then in the same month, just a few weeks later, he's in a picture with the president, basically giving a thumbs up. So how do you make sense of those two?
Well, so we have an entire chapter.
Funny that they should bring that up with me and Tia Frio. Oh, you. I have gone into places with him there, by the way, and got stung in my ribs by what I could only explain as it felt like a bee sting. No, but he invited me there. It was his entourage. And yet I go there and I'm stung. And then I'm sitting with two people as I get stung. I mention it. I'm like, oh. I was like, normally I wouldn't mention it, but then he's like, no, I want you to mention it. And what happened? And so I walked them through it. I'm like, I don't know. It felt like a bee sting. And he's like, well, what could it be? I'm like, I have no idea. I was like, there's no bees here. I mean, like, I'm not in the mindset of going out in public and thinking that I'm going to be hit with a needle of some sort. I'm just not. I'm not wired that way. I'm not as evil as the rest of you shitbag humans. So then he goes, who'd you come with? And I go, and so I said, he's over there. So he says, go, do me a favor. He goes, go over there and tell him, because I want to see what his reaction is. I said, fine. So I went over there. So I tried to explain to him. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, something happened. I got hit. I was like, it feels like I got hit by like a bee or something. I got stung. So whoever I was speaking to originally was behind where Tia Frio 1975 was standing. And he says, what do you think this could be? And then like a whole conversation, he didn't even want to answer the guy. So now that puts me, again, because Guy leaves. Guy who knows what's going on, who I don't know, who's there when I get hit. And then just leaves and evaporates into thin air and leaves me with a shitbag 1975 whose entourage is the one that set me up to get hit. But then there's the days where I'm like, well, how do I get this shitbag out of my life? Because there's no humans that are really actually helpful in the world. They just send their shitty toilet paper in your fucking world. So you get hurt, beat, drugged. You miss days and time and space completely. Because they're up to whatever the fuck they're up to in the local area. In this collapsing star system.
Chapter that really captures week by week what we call that.
But then it's like, take a picture and you're like, here's my captor. Anybody out there? I know I got a file somewhere. Like, anybody? You see me on Facebook with this guy smiling? How about the one where I'm like, Anybody waking up going, wait a minute, she's been drugged, she's been raped, they've tried murdering her several times. Maybe we should intervene and help her out. I mean, like, I know it's way too much to, like, comprehend. At people who have, like, children and actually want to have some kind of, like, economy and whatever the hell else you all pray to.
Mitch McConnell went from denouncing Trump in such harsh terms after January 6th to sort of returning to, in some ways, to his good graces. And,
Yeah, you called it a head-snapping reversal.
A head-snapping reversal. And the reason is pretty straightforward. McCarthy wants to be Speaker of the House, and that is his paramount goal. And he looks around his caucus. They just don't care what Donald Trump did on January 6th. They're more concerned about what their voters think, and their voters are just fine with Donald Trump. And once McCarthy figures that out, I've got to be where the caucus is. He goes back to the caucus.
You lose me in all this. I really don't give a
"I'm not
shit.
doing
No, here's the first time I ever heard of this. It's White House Correspondents' Dinner. What does that say? Returns.
The event went on despite concerns about COVID. As Ed O'Keefe shows us, high-profile celebrities joined journalists and government figures, including President Biden.
I'm really excited to be here tonight with the only group of Americans with a lower approval rating than I have.
Armed with a few one-liners, President Biden was the first commander-in-chief to headline the White House Correspondents' Dinner since 2016.
This is the first time the president attended this.
Oh, one of the major catastrophes that hit me in my portion of the collapsing star system. Same year. 2016.
Dinner in 6 years. It's understandable. We had a horrible plague, followed by 2 years of COVID.
Canceled for 2 years by the pandemic, this year's dinner drew more than 2,000 journalists, politicians, and, yes, a few celebrities who had to be vaccinated and test negative for COVID. But that didn't stop the jokes.
It is my great honor to be speaking tonight at the nation's most distinguished super spreader event.
The Daily Show's Trevor Noah dished out the biggest laughs, mostly at the president's expense.
Ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. You know, gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
CBS News Radio's Stephen Portnoy led the evening as president of the Correspondents Association.
Our democracy depends on journalists shining light and truth upon darkness and lies, and bringing accountability to officials at every level of our government.
The
I appreciate.
President and Noah agreed. Despite the pandemic, laughter, and partying, calling out those in position of power is a distinctly American trait.
Trevor, the really good news is now you get to roast the President of the United States. And unlike in Moscow, you won't go to jail.
I stood here tonight and I made fun of the President of the United States, and I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine, right? Do you really understand what a blessing is?
No, I don't. I don't. Because I've been here, have said absolutely nothing my entire life. And yet I've had my house broken into, been put into a deeper sleep, my stomach carved up, which left me with traumatizing scars. I've had the man sleeping next to me roll over out of nowhere and try choking me, putting his hands around my neck while I slept, asking my parents what I should do, and they're just like, go to therapy. I mean, really horrible human experience. So no, I don't understand, because I've never said anything about anybody until I started with YouTube. Years, decades of abuse in. After it already happened, I said something. And now it's getting worse. But now it's getting worse through some augmented virtual capability, but it affects my real visual spectrum and my real visual and physicality that I have to try to live through. With bones cracking, a unbeknownst weight gain out of nowhere for no reason, on top of debilitating physicality ailments of the muscles in some kind of dystrophy are no longer working in this environment, but it's part of a different plague with some kind of neuropathy and atrophy that could be avoided, but it's in the hands of things I can't get to.
The dinner is a lot of fun, but it's also for a good cause. They handed out more than $130,000 to 31 students at 15 universities. Tony, it was great to see you and everybody else.
Oh, more useless people for the future. Great.
I had a great time.
It was a late night. Evan Spiegel was there. We can ask him what he thought. We're going to begin this hour with the head of one of the world's most popular social media companies, Snap Incorporated, the developer of Snapchat.
I have no idea who Evan Spiegel is.
Snapchat, remember, that's what it was called back in the day, reports more than 600 million people use the app every single month, and about 330 million use it daily, which is more active, by the way, than users that Twitter has. The company says it reaches more than 75% of 13 to 34-year-olds in over 20 countries. So if you've got kids of that age in your house, they know about this. And now Snap is betting its future on augmented reality. What is that? Interactive technology that places computer-generated images over the real world around you. So when you look through an AR lens, for instance, Snap CEO and co-founder Evan Spiegel is here for an interview that is cool, for an interview you'll see only on CBS Mornings. Good morning to you, Evan Spiegel. We are so glad to
Yeah, it's real cool until they turn it against you to try to hurt you.
have you in the studio.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
It was your first Nerd Prom. Before we get into you, what did you think?
It was. We had a ton of fun. It was wild to see like 3,000 people packed in there, though. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yes, in a long time. So here's the big thing. Everybody's talking about metaverse, virtual reality, and you're saying, yeah, that may be good, but let me tell you about augmented reality. What do you mean by that?
Well, our big bet is on the real world. When we started as a camera company more than 10 years ago, we built an app that opens into the camera, opens into your experience of what's happening around you. And we figured out that people had fun expressing themselves with AR, effects overlaid on their video. So we took all the tools that we were using to build those AR effects ourselves, and we made them available to the whole world so that anyone could build
I don't need the story. I need the vocabulary in order to make the paradox and parallel thing fit. So the paradigm shift, now that we're adrift and in collapsing star system, like for real, understands and has my whatever to know just how painful what they could have avoided but allowed to go into effect anyway.
Augmented reality lenses and share them with our community. And now there are hundreds of thousands of developers who build over 2.5 million lenses that are used, by 250 million people every day on Snapchat.
And if that technology never existed, humans would still be alive. They'd still be okay, and they might actually be focusing on what needs to be done, rather than distracting themselves with stupid trinkets and toys.
What can I do with it exactly? I mean, just give me an example.
Oh, there's a wide range of things. You could try on a new pair of shoes. You could solve a math problem by pointing your camera at it. Sometimes you can even just overlay fun effects on your face if you want to, express yourself with your friends.
And when you were starting Snapchat, the thing I like, you don't do legs up or down. That's very debilitating for a lot of people. What was your intention when you started the company years ago? What were you trying to do?
Well, Bobby and I grew up with social media, and what we found was that people were only sharing like that 1% of their life that's really pretty, really perfect. So there was a lot of pressure to get attention, this kind of big game to get social attention, to get comments and likes.
I call that being held hostage by people and things that you really don't want to be around, and trying to put up like, help, and then have nobody answer, or for the answers to go into effect, like magnified so much worse. Humans are really disgusting. They have never proven me wrong.
online. And so we wanted a different way to express ourselves with our friends. And so when we built Snapchat, there weren't public likes and comments. And actually the content in your story, for example, disappears after 24 hours. And that makes people feel more comfortable expressing themselves because every day is a new day.
Well, Gail mentioned.
Yeah, and on my thing, I have one tube that opens a portal from somewhere else and gets routed in here for one message. One tube. Only one I check. And then I have one tube out, which is called YouTube. And the platform would be Facebook, that I then put the MP3 link onto, so I'm done. It is not hard for someone at like CEO, like really smart, like went to college, somebody loved him and wanted him to succeed in the world. Not really hard for kiddo to know how to build a static page that just collects the YouTube links. So this way it's verified that what went on YouTube is there, and yeah, it's really her and these things really went on. So now, that's whatever it is. I mean, but it's not necessarily to be shared with the whole world, because the whole world hasn't stood with me or given a shit about me since I was young. So on that, I need one person who's got a couple of friends just to get me out of this one situation. I don't know why this is so difficult. I really don't need to be doing anything else except making the point where, case in point, I was supposed to be from a child. Star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. Oh, and here, oh, you really, such gems did you all spit out this generation. Dare to Share campaign. Jamie Howard of the Child's Mind, right, that's humanity, on kids and mental health. In America, how are they doing? Yeah, not well. They've been abused. Their entire world is falling apart by more superior, like, technology experts elsewhere, and then some really, like, dangerous adventure capitalists that are creating real havoc. This is how they talk to one another, though. Like, oh my God, were you a celebrity? Did you have too much money? Did you maybe get in a little trouble? Oh, okay. It's just a mental health disease. No big deal. No. Then for them to take that, they're like, oh, here, take some pills. They come from overseas. They're magic. They'll make you feel better. Oh, no, they won't. Rather than getting the heart of the problem, they just keep doing this $1 a day to feed somebody else's budget and agenda just to make the world worse. Oh, you want to hear them in real action? Sure, why not? Here's the sunny disposition everybody looks for.
Individuals of influence to share their stories.
It's so important because 1 in 5 children and adolescents has a diagnosable mental health or learning disorder. So these are...
That means where they know about augmented reality and virtual reality and then sublingual and endocrine programming, there's an even more serious issue. If 1 in 5 of the humans are coming out broken every time, there's a real result. Is CDC, are they touching on that one? I'm just curious, because those kids, they're never honest. They look at the big picture. Yeah, no, they don't.
Actually the most common disorders of childhood, but stigma is a huge barrier to care. So,
oh, and you are just the perpetuator of stigmas, aren't you? Oh my God, you and your social engineering failure. Oh my God.
So we have celebrities who we look up to and we admire and we know that they're so successful.
No, I don't. I don't know any of the celebrities.
and talented, that makes it seem like, oh, it would be okay if I shared too. I can get the help that I need.
And when you say 1 in 5 children, do you have a specific age range that you think parents, you really need to pay attention to this particular age?
And this is where they mislead one another. They buy into the fake narrative and they just share it like a disease. It's a mental disease within itself.
Age, this particular phase, this particular sex?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we like to look at through age 20.
But she went to college, so now she's the expert. No, she's not. She's still not. That's how dumb. College point? There was no point. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.